Hi, and welcome to Best in Tesla. Warren Buffett usually look at a company if it has any moats over the competition. So if a company has one or two or three moats over the competition, that should be a good company to invest in. Well, in this book, the Elon Musk mission, we lay down 21 moats that Tesla has over the competition. But there is one moat that is bigger than all the other moats, according to the author Randy Kirk, that I have invited in today to talk about Tesla's biggest moat of them all and why this is so important for Tesla and the future of the company. So let's check it all out and let's dive right in. All right. Thank you so much for being here today, Randy, and welcome to Best in Tesla.
Nice to see you again, Lars.
And
The book is selling well, by the way. Thank you
that's
very
good.
much for your participation.
Good to hear. Good to hear. Because there is this book out called The Elon Musk Mission. And there is a chapter in here, chapter 44, that is called The Biggest Moat Flexibility. And there is a little question here in the beginning of this chapter that said, what is the flexibility moat and why is it worth of a second and separate chapter? So, Randy, I would like to ask you that. What is the flexibility mode and why is this so important for Tesla?
Well, so I'm just in case you may have some new listeners or people that are not that thoroughly engaged with business issues. Maybe they're really into tech or they're really into cars and maybe they've never owned a business or cared that much. Maybe they don't even own any stocks right now. And maybe the moat thing is something that they're completely unfamiliar with.
Yep.
So, and I'm finding that a lot is that people don't really know what a moat is and why it's important. So is it cool that we start there?
Let's do that. That sounds
All
right.
right.
Good idea.
So I think the best way to think about a moat is the way that we mostly think about a moat, and that's that that waterway that encircles the castle. Okay. And now the deeper that moat is, and the wider it is, the less likely it is that the soldiers and their horses are going to be able to get to the wall and start scaling up before people start pouring the oil on them. Okay. so, and then if you really want to make that moat difficult, then you can throw in a few piranha and a couple of crocodiles, and that could make it even more devastating for the soldiers and such to try to cross. So in business, we have the same thing. What we're trying to do is protect that castle. We're trying to protect it with methodologies for keeping the competition at bay. The most common moat that people think of is a patent. So if you have let's say you're a pharmaceutical company or even a manufacturer, Tesla has many, 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 many patents. But Elon Musk has said,
patents of the week.
I think there's a T-shirt there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let's do that.
So, patents are for the week. First of all, they only last 17 years. And usually by the time you actually start production, you're in several years into your patent. Moreover, there's ways to get around patents, sometimes by changing the way that you make something or changing the intellectual aspects of it. Sometimes people just run over that moat. They say, whatever, sue me. Okay. We've had some really, really big cases like that with Apple Computer and with Microsoft getting sued by people that claim that their patents have been overrun. Okay. So what are better moats? Better moats would be things like, for instance, having 30% margins.
That would be a good moat.
Everybody else in the industry has 10% margins. Now, why is that a great moat? Because somebody who has 30% margins, they can lower their price by 10%, and they're still 10% margins better than the guy that's at 10%. So when you have a moat like that, it gives you what they call pricing flexibility. And when you have pricing flexibility, then you can cream the competition. I think, Lars, this is like a perfect time in the business cycle to talk just for a minute about that example. I think people will understand it better. So everybody's worried about China right now. Everybody's worried about a recession right now.
Yeah.
And for the last week, a lot of people have been claiming that the stock is down because Tesla is going to have to reduce their prices again due to a demand problem in China. So if there's not enough demand for all the new supply that they're making in the Shanghai factory, would Tesla have to reduce their prices and thereby potentially reduce their margins, which would reduce their earnings, which would reduce the value of the stock?
Yeah.
So I hope that's really clear. So, but the reality is they have the ability to reduce their margins because their margins are so much greater than other car companies. So that there's a reality that they can reduce their margins, whereas a BYD that's not making any money on cars right now at all, or a Mercedes, I'm so sorry.
All that technology.
All that technology. So a BYD or even a Mercedes that isn't making as much money per car, as much margin, if their sales slow down due to a recession, they don't have as much flexibility to reduce that price because otherwise they're going into the red.
Yeah.
So they would tend to accumulate inventory, waiting for better times, or lower production.
Yeah.
Well, you don't see any evidence at all that the folks at Tesla are reducing their inventory. Increasing their inventory or reducing their production.
Yeah.
So this is the kind of flexibility that we're talking about with regard to pricing power. That's just one area of flexibility, but you can see right away how great it is to have that power compared to the others. Just this morning, it was announced that BYD will be raising their prices.
Yeah.
Why are they raising their prices? They're not making any money. So, and there's evidence that some of the others are starting to accumulate inventory and are starting to lower production. So this is not an issue, at least so far, for Tesla. So there's a quick description of the moats.
Yeah. Because I think flexibility, I think this was a great chapter to put in the book because I really think this is so deeply incorporated in Tesla. In everything they pretty much do is flexible. But as you also write in the chapter, I don't think Elon actually anticipated this, and that was kind of what he was aiming for. It just happened to become this flexibility company because of all the first principle thinking. Like their factories are also hugely flexible. I think a very good example of Tesla's flexibility compared to anybody in the industry is that the Texas factory that was supposed to only produce the 4680 cell and build Model Ys only of the 4680 cell, but the ramp of that 4680 cell was a little bit late. And Tesla's like, okay, we're just gonna add another production line and build it with the 2170 cells, also in a structural battery pack and all that kind of stuff. Like, well, nobody else has that flexibility in their production system that they can do that, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a great example, Lars. And I think I think the batteries is such a way that we can get a picture of the flexibility moat.
Yeah.
So let's start way, way back at the mines. All right. The first thing you have to do is you have to mine the material. Now, we know you'd have to be living under a rock not to know that there's an issue with getting enough material right now, certainly of lithium, of nickel, of some of the materials are harder and easier to get, but lithium and nickel are the two that are talked about the most. So what does Elon do? He goes out years in advance, knowing that this is going to be an issue, and starts building in these contracts with these different mines. Instead of buying on the spot market, which most people would do, he goes and sets up contracts with the mines directly, so he's not dependent on the spot market. And what does he also do by setting up all these contracts? He ends up owning all that production, which means that Mercedes and BMW and General Motors and Ford, they go to the same miner and they're like, we would like to get some of your production. And they're like, sorry.
Sold out.
Sold out. So Now you've got mines. They've got deals with mines in the United States, with mines in Australia, mines in China, mines in Indonesia. They have all these mines around the country. I mean, around the world. So now they're set. They believe, they've even said at the last earnings call that they are set with the materials that they need for making batteries for the immediate future. They didn't say for 7 years or for 10 years, but at least for now, they've got enough materials to make the batteries that they need to make. I don't think the other companies can say that. And I think the other companies are also going to be a bit surprised at their inability to get materials when the time comes.
Yeah, like also like I talked with the mining expert John Lee about the mining, that what GM is doing, they get nickel and all that kind of stuff on paper because they go to the battery manufacturer and ask them for more batteries, and the battery manufacturer say, yes, we will take a contract of $5 billion, no, for sure. And then they go to the mines and say, oh, by the way, we would like to 10x our raw materials coming from you guys. And so they're not even going to the mines. I think they're starting to wake up and see what Tesla has done by going directly to the mines, and they want to copy that. But so far, we haven't seen much of GM or Ford or anybody else going directly to the mines. They're starting to collaborate. GM was collaborating with one refinery or something like that, but Tesla want to become a refinery as well.
Yes,
on top of that. So yeah, that's just amazing how they are accumulating all of these materials. And they have also said, we will buy any battery you will make.
Right.
Yeah, Ford is not going to go out and say that.
At every level, they've said that.
Yeah.
We'll buy all the nickel you can ship us. We'll buy all the lithium you can ship us. We'll buy all the batteries you can ship us. But that's kind of my point, is if we go all the way back to mining, they've gone way ahead of the game and said, we're going to buy up all the material that we can possibly buy up. That's going to give us flexibility down the stream to be able to use that material wherever we need it. That's the flexibility. Okay. It's one thing to own it. Now what happens? Well, I bought all this material, but now car sales slow down. Oh, darn. I guess I'll put it into energy storage. So as long as you've got one or the other, in this particular case, there's only the two levers to pull, but they have both levers. They have both of those available to them. So if one lever, if energy storage, all of a sudden they have plenty of energy storage materials and they're not getting enough orders to continue to produce, well, maybe cars are accelerating. So that's an example of flexibility. Only two other car companies really are looking at energy storage as an option, and that's BYD and General Motors. And BYD, of course, is big into energy storage, but General Motors, they're just putting their toe in the water. So I don't look at that as being a great flexibility moat for them downstream, unless it may turn out to be, but there's no way to know that yet.
But many years down the road, then.
Many years down the road.
Yeah.
So now let's take it to the next step. You mentioned refining. So right now, a lot of lithium gets mined in Australia, gets on a boat, gets shipped up to China. China does the refining. They put it on a boat, and they ship it over to the United States, or maybe they ship it to somebody else, another factory in China, or maybe now to the United States to be put into a battery. And now that gets shipped up. Well, Elon says, no, this is nonsense. Okay. What we need to do is we need to put the mining and the refining and the battery production and the car production and the energy storage production. We need to put that all in the same region so that we're not shipping those atoms all over the world. First principles thinking, don't ship the atoms if you don't have to.
Yeah, exactly.
So now you take the Australian raw materials. Eventually, maybe even I think by the middle or the end of 24, those will be shipped to the south coast of Texas there and go directly into the Elon Musk, to the Tesla refining facility, be refined there, then sent up to Austin to be put into a battery in the same building that they are building the cars.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to have that kind of flexibility. Nobody else is going to reduce that cost of shipping things from factory, from location to location to location, and each one of those middlemen, each taking a profit.
Yeah.
This is the beauty of vertical integration. You eliminate the 10 or 15 or 20% profit from each of those middlemen, and you eliminate the handling between each of those middle people.
Yeah.
So this is another perfect example of building in the flexibility to the system. Now, he doesn't build all of his own batteries. He's not going to do all of his own refining. And even if he gets into mining, Tesla's not going to do all their own mining. So that's also flexibility. If I don't make it myself, I've got 3 other guys over here, 5 other guys, 10 other guys that are providing me with the batteries, providing me with the raw materials, providing me with the refined product, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas I think, was that you? Didn't you do a report just last week about General Motors only having like 1 battery?
One. Yeah. Exactly. That's totally opposite of flexibility, right? That
One
they have
battery company.
one battery from one manufacturer, LG, and it's a lithium-ion battery, the most expensive battery. But we saw it with the Bolt when that blew up and they couldn't get the batteries from LG Chem or didn't want to. Well, the whole production stopped and they didn't produce EVs for half a year.
Yeah. And
That will never happen for Tesla.
And Ford, they have 2, did you say?
Yes, they have SKI. I can't remember. I think they have somebody else.
But pretty much, if you go around to all the other companies, they have 1 or 2 battery resources.
Yeah.
They certainly aren't contemplating the idea of making the battery. Well, a couple of them are making batteries or making them in concert, but most of them are not making their own batteries.
Yeah.
None of them are looking into refining. It's certainly none of them are looking into mining.
Yeah, I think it was CATL's lithium-ion batteries that Ford was talking with CATL to get that down the road at some point. So they were actually thinking about that. So that was pretty good. But Tesla has, if you take, I think it's the 5 or 6 biggest battery manufacturer in the EV industry. They have contract with every one of them, and they produce like 80% of all batteries for the EV industry. And Tesla is and has lines from them, and the others have, like GM have 1. It's like night and day when it comes to flexibility at that point.
Yeah, so now we can go to the next level. So now we have the refining, we bring those in. We need to make batteries, and we've talked about the flexibility with regard to all the battery companies that they can buy from, as well as their own manufacturing. And now we get to the battery itself. Now you intimated that just a little while ago. Well, they have the 4680. They have I forget all these numbers all the time. 650.
1865 and 2170.
2170, 1860. Yeah. So you have all these different battery possibilities and different battery chemistries.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I don't know all the details. There's so many companies and there's so many but most of the car companies relying on 1 battery source are also relying on 1 battery size, 1 battery format, and 1 battery chemistry.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, Tesla, we can't get enough nickel. Well, let's switch to iron.
Yeah.
We can't get enough. They're not always going to get enough iron. Okay. We don't want to be bothered with these rare earth chemicals that might be mined in horrible places that are exploiting children. Okay. We'll build a battery that it doesn't take any of those chemicals.
Any cobalt, yeah.
No cobalt at all. So you can get the flexibility is I'm making you just said it a minute ago. We're making cars in Austin. The 4680s aren't as far along as we'd like them to be. Fine. We'll put 2743s. Sorry to be
2170.
Those, yeah.
Yeah. A couple of those.
Those in instead.
Yeah.
So that kind of flexibility is just absolutely unheard of.
Yeah.
Among any other car company, among any of the battery companies. Yes, some of the biggest like CATL are experimenting with different chemistries. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But switching over is not just switching over. there's more to it than just saying, oh, well, we'll just change chemistries. It's going to change your how long the battery's going to last. It's going to change how fast the car goes from 0 to 60. It's going to change the range. It's going to change everything about the car, unless you are ready to flexibly change the arrangement in the car so that battery now is going to give you all the same capabilities.
And probably also change the software.
And it may
Because
change the software.
Yeah. Like we saw with the semiconductor shortage, that's been talked about in the mainstream media, at least,
Yeah.
and they were really surprised how well Tesla did in those, because they could write 16 new different software for those chips.
Right.
And I think that's also why they went to BYD and said, yeah, sure, we'll take your Blade battery. That's a completely different, more technology.
Nobody ever calls me except spam.
It's a salesman. It's a salesperson.
So, in fact, that was the United States calling. It says right there on my screen, the United States just called me.
Okay.
I got to call the United States back right after we're done.
They want to hear more about this lithium mining thing.
They must.
Yeah. But yeah, even the Blade battery by BYD is so different than all the other batteries, and they just saying, yeah, sure, we can make that happen. And when you think about the other guys, if they have to change the structure of the battery and the way they're produced, it will take them years to make this change. And Tesla does it like,
yeah, I would. In fact, because of that phone call screwing things up, I missed your point. Were you saying that Tesla has said, yeah, we can even use the Blade battery if we want to?
Yeah, they will make the Blade battery. They make a standard range in Berlin with the Blade battery.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this would be one great example. This is we've only talked about the battery part of the business. And hopefully the viewers can see the flexibility that Tesla has all up and down the production. The production of the battery is so flexible. Now you're talking about now you get a multiplier factor. Since you have multiple ways of getting the raw materials, multiple raw materials that you can use, multiple ways that you can refine it, multiple ways that you can put it into the battery, multiple ways that you can build and format the battery, and multiple ways now that you can use that in cars or in energy.
Yeah.
There's a multiplier effect.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not talking about just 1 times 1 or 1 times 2 here. We're talking about 5 times 3 times 6 times 2. So the flexibility component becomes this huge number that is unapproachable by any other car company in a decade. I mean, they could all start tomorrow, and none of them would have that flexibility within the decade.
Yeah. And I really think also the flexibility in Tesla having their own software team. Because everything they change in the car, you have to write new software to it. And Tesla is like, they can spin on a dime and suddenly they do something new and say, okay, we're just going to write some new software for that. That's great. That's awesome. And then we see Volkswagen, they can't make an operating system work, and they have invested $6 billion and have 5,000 workers at Carrot, their software company. And Tesla is so flexible and so efficient, I might add, because I just saw some numbers about their R&D spending.
Yeah.
That they spent in 2021. Tesla spent $2.6 billion on R&D, and Volkswagen spent $16.7 billion. So they spent like 8 times more than Tesla, and they can't get an operating system to work, and they have shut down Argo, their autonomous driving with Ford and so on. And Tesla, well, their little AI team on 150 people are gonna roll out beta to 1 million people by the end of this year. I mean, that kind of flexibility in software is just unheard of as well, in my opinion.
Yes, and it really speaks to another issue, which is kind of tangential to the subject matter today, but it's still really important. And it's one that I would say 1 out of 100 investors, even Wall Street pundits, don't talk about return on invested capital. And we have a large section on return on invested capital in the book, because it's hard to imagine anything more important in terms of valuing the efficiency, the effectiveness of a company than how well they spend that invested dollar. So if Tesla puts up a $2 billion factory, about a year and a half later, it's profitable.
Yeah.
If Volkswagen puts up a $4 billion factory, about 5 years later, it's profitable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a really big difference.
Yeah.
That might be, I may have made up that second number, but
Something like that.
It's like that.
Yeah.
So the return on invested capital, just an article just this morning in Teslarati, and it was talking about the fact that now Tesla's return on invested capital is the highest of anybody in the automotive business.
Yeah.
They are actually, in our book, we talk about the fact that they are actually one of the top return on invested capital of any company on earth. My prediction would be that by sometime in 2023, their ROIC will be greater than any other company out there, period. Not even close.
Yeah.
Because what the reason why they're even behind now is because they're still ramping all of this activity.
Yeah.
So their return on invested capital, it was really hard to even figure out what it was 3 years ago because there was really no return yet. They weren't profitable. So then it's hard to show. You can do it. There's an accounting way that you can still show return on invested capital even when the company is losing money. But once the company starts making money, it becomes a lot easier to show that. And because their profits are accelerating faster than their sales are, their return on invested capital is becoming more and more and more, just higher and higher and higher. And I think by next year, the headline will be highest ROIC of any company, maybe in history.
Yeah. that would be kind of amazing.
That would be kind of amazing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned flexibility in their software. Well, that flexibility in software, you've spent so much time on this, Lars. That flexibility in their software shows up no place more than it does in their factory.
Yeah.
And I think besides the whole battery story, the factory story is really where this flexibility thing is just so evident.
Yeah.
If you're making how many changes a day? Now let's be honest. We have heard that Tesla makes 20 changes a day, 40 changes a day, 60 changes a day. And that's hardware and or software.
Yeah.
We're not really sure how many changes a day they make, but it's a lot.
It's a lot.
So, but I think in Joe Justice and some of your interviews with him, he was talking 20 hardware changes a day, was he?
Yeah, there's like 20 or 27. I think Elon actually confirmed 20 changes in the production line, or the car of any car a week.
A week.
And that would be very easy. Yeah. Joe Justice talks about that there are 60 different new parts coming into their factories every single day. Yeah. So no matter what, it is lightning speed. And again, I think a very big thing of this is like they have taken the cost of innovation and change down to absolutely zero. That makes that they can do change all the time because it doesn't cost them anything. Where if any legacy automakers should do any change to their production line, it costs them a lot of money. So that flexibility that in the factories that they can just change whatever they want because it doesn't cost them anything to do so.
Yeah. So 50 years ago, well, more than that, post World War II, the big thing that was being talked about in the MBA programs we're all excited about was the fact that quality was free. Prior to that, everybody looked at QC as being a cost of doing business. So, you had to hire these people to check the quality. And then if you made the changes, that was going to cost money. So everybody looked at QC, quality control, all of that as being a cost of doing business. And then all of a sudden, it was really in the car industry that Toyota and others started putting to work this idea that quality was free. And the reason quality was free was because you have less scrap, you have less do-over, you have less recalls, you have happier customers. The customers come back and buy more. So the truth was that quality was less than free. The truth was quality was something that was an added value that was going to give you actually more profits in the long run. Now, most companies understand the concept that quality is free or even better than free. I think Elon has introduced this idea now that having the ability to make lots of changes and to make those changes rapid iteration, fail often, fail forward, that this is also free or better than free. You want to make a change in a mold? Yeah, there's a cost to do that. But how quickly does that cost get covered by all the things we just talked about? Better quality, less scrap, happier customers, etc. So this is a whole new, lesson the MBA programs will be talking about for the next 40 years.
Yeah, yeah. Also, like Joe Johnson has said, that he thinks the way that Tesla does business is going to be the new way of doing business. So this is going to be taught in business school in 10 or 20 years, and this is how you're supposed to do it. They still have a lot of things to learn, because right now you have to be like a pro athlete to go work for Tesla, because you have to be willing to peak perform all day long and work all long hours and so on. So they have to learn how to make it sustainable for everybody to come work for Tesla. Because right now it's for the elite that want to build this company up and lift it off the ground and become something very special. But down the road, they have also changed how we create a company, how we run a company, and so on. And Joe Justice thinks this is going to be the new way of doing business in the future. But of course, with a little twist that this should be something that everybody could do, that you could also have a life beside working for Tesla, if you were,
so I've been a business consultant for the last 15 years, and I've been writing business books for 40 years and running factories and wholesalers and importers and exporters for 50 years. Ooh, did I say 50 years out loud? Anyway.
You don't look a day over 50.
Thank you. My mom agrees with you. So she says, you can't be that old, Randy. What does that make me?
Yeah.
But the reality is these kinds of innovations trickle down slowly, and they never trickle down 100%. So the quality is free thing. I can tell you that in working with 300 or 400 companies as a consultant the last 15 years, it's a rare thing to walk into one of those companies and find that they get the idea that quality is tantamount, that's how you should run your business, because it's the most profitable way to run your business. I'll give you a perfect example that there have been many studies that have proven that customer service has an exact correlation with profitability. The better the customer service, the higher the profits. And it's a perfect correlation. And yet most companies, as you, I'm sure know, you've been on the phone, like one of my clients was on the phone this morning with their computer hosting company. Their quality service, their customer service was not that good.
No.
So people haven't necessarily figured out that customer service is that quality is correlated with profits, customer service is correlated with profits. The new one is going to be that agile manufacturing, or even greater than agile manufacturing, is correlated with profits. But he's proving it. Tesla is proving it in a major way every single day. So what does that flexibility mean in terms of the moat again, in terms of keeping the competition at bay? So I like to think about a crazy scenario. So let's just, for fun, this will probably be the headline, because they'll cut it out and they'll make this the headline. let's pretend that China's demand falls off a cliff. Okay. They have another round of COVID. The Chinese government does something crazy with regard to the value of the yuan. I don't know, maybe, but for whatever reason, Chinese quality I mean, Chinese demand does actually fall off a cliff.
Yeah.
Well, I'm pretty sure, I think I could make this case that Tesla could quickly change the Model 3 and the Model Y by changing the interior a little bit here and there, changing the tires that they're selling, changing the brake system that they're selling, et cetera, and get their cost of that Model 3 or that Model Y down by $5,000. Okay, and another company, they would need to start from scratch with a 5-year plan to put out a $5,000 COG, cost of goods sold, less expensive product. Yeah. But I think Tesla could almost do that in line by making moderate changes here and there on the fly. Okay. Less battery, little less battery, little different battery, whatever it is. We know that you can save a lot of money just by switching out the number of cells and the chemistry that you're using. So little change here, little change there, get the cost down from, what is it now? They say it's 36,000 is the average, but that's the average over all of them. I don't think that's what a Model 3 costs. But
no, they say that's what it cost them to build an electric vehicle today. Yeah.
Period. So across all of them, average.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So let's say that a Model 3 might already be 30. Okay. So you get that down to 25, all of a sudden now you can sell that car for 35,000, 37,000, something like that. So you have these levers that you can pull that no other company can pull. They can say, well, we have this other car over here. I don't want the other car. I want that car for less. So this is the kind of stuff that having a factory that is that flexible means for Tesla.
Yeah.
Another company comes out with something new.
Yeah.
And Tesla goes, oh, wow, that's a good idea. And Honda goes, wow, that's a good idea. 3 years later, Honda has it. 15 minutes later, Tesla has it.
Or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. I do like to exaggerate. You may have noticed this.
Yeah.
But seriously, they can get it done really rapidly compared to the other companies. With the other companies, it wouldn't even be a consideration. This wouldn't even be something they'd be going, oh, that's a great idea. Let's incorporate that into our line this year.
No.
They'd be laughed off the block.
Yeah, and it's not in the budget, so they can't do it anyway.
Not in the budget.
Yeah, I really think that their flexibility, that the whole company is so flexibility, also provide the speed of Tesla. As we just talked about, you could change the whole car, but we also see this in like Tesla will come out with the $25,000 car, whatever it's going to be, the next generation model that they have talked about, that is going to be half the price. So from 36,000 down to what, 18,000?
Right.
It's going to be really cheap, and they're going to come out and probably have a factory ready to produce that car in 2 years, in 2024. And Volkswagen has just, delayed their cheap electric car. They're still having trouble with their ID3 and ID4 and their software and all that stuff. But they have been talking about the Trinity platform, saying we will also come with a $25,000 car in 2026. And now they're saying, maybe it's going to be 2030, 2019, 2028, 29 or something like that. So that's also the speed of Volkswagen. They started the production of the ID3 in 2020. Or even November 2019, I believe. But yeah, 2019 was when they started production of this car. And they're going to have the next iteration of their next platform in 2030, 10 years later. Like, wow, that's fast.
So then another aspect of flexibility has to do with staff. So I haven't worked for a company for a very, very long company, for a very, very long time. But even the companies I've owned, when I had my factory, you were a blow mold operator. You were an injection mold operator. You were a printer. Yeah. You put caps on bottles, whatever it was. You had a job. And yes, if you worked hard at that job and if you were putting caps on bottles and you wanted to become a blow molder, yes, you could aspire to that. And after a few years, maybe you would be given a chance to be a blow molder. And then maybe you wanted to be a supervisor or a shift manager. Maybe you wanted to be a manager. Yes, over time, you might have some of these opportunities. With Tesla, you come in with you have no job description.
Yeah.
you have no, you're not a manager. You're not an assistant manager. You are one more person that's put out there to go do the work.
Yeah.
Whatever the work is that needs to be done at any given time. It's called a flat management system as opposed to hierarchical, which is almost all companies are hierarchical.
Yeah.
If you have a flat managerial system where everybody's expected to just go find the most important thing that needs to be done next, that changes everybody's attitude in the entire company.
Yeah.
And it allows you to go where the problem is much more rapidly than anybody else can.
Yeah. Yeah, because like your Justice talked about, that it could of course be a little demotivating that you don't finish your product because of the project you're on, because you work on it maybe 8 hours a day, but then someone else comes in and finish it because Tesla works 24/7, and then you come in next day and your product is already done and something new has come up. But I think the empowerment that people get at Tesla is very rewarding and would motivate most people that work there and think, well, I can make changes to everything. If I come up with a great idea, we can go out and buy stuff even, and because there's no budget, so we can just buy it and get it done. I think that is a really motivating mode for those employees, that they can do whatever they want to, and they are empowered to make changes, even though it could be demotivating that that there is no hierarchy. You can't get to another level. You can't become manager and boss and blah blah blah. You just work there.
Right.
So that could be demotivating for some people, but I think the fact that you are empowered to make changes would motivate many people.
I think you said it a little while ago. You have to be a particular kind of person. Yes, maybe you have to be the super athlete, but you not only have to be the super athlete, but you have to have that mindset. Who was it said the other day that they would go back to Tesla? They had their AI guy that left.
Oh yeah, from Comma AI.
No. Yeah, no. Is he with? No. The Tesla, the Tesla major hitter.
Andrew Carpathy.
Or Carpathy.
Yeah.
Carpathy said the other day in an interview, he said, I left because I didn't want to be a manager.
Yeah.
I had 1,000 people working for me.
Yeah.
No,
don't want that.
No, thank you. I liked being out there doing the engineering and making things happen.
Yeah.
So I think there's a personality that prefers. I'm even that personality. Yeah. I started 40 companies. I didn't really want to run any of them. I'm a marketing guy, a sales guy. I like developing and designing and figuring out how to make it sell through at retail and checking, going out and seeing the buyers and finding out how well the product is doing. Just like our book now. See, I get to do what I love to do, is product manage the book. So there's different personalities. And we had a company, I was in the bicycle industry pretty much my whole career. And there was a company which you may be well aware of called Specialized. And they were one of the top makers in the world in terms of high quality bicycles. But they had almost a Tesla-like environment. Their culture was bring them in and burn them out. But they called it Specialized University because people would come in and they would work there for 3 or 4 years. They would burn out. And if they had Specialized on their resume, wherever they wanted to go.
Yeah.
And so they would get their training at Specialized, and then they would be in the industry for the next 40 years at a high paying job. So I think that also, I know that also happens at Tesla. If you're an engineer and you've got 3 or 4 years at Tesla University.
Yeah. You can go work anywhere.
Yeah. So those are just some of the ways that we see the flexibility issue. Oh, here's a beauty. How about having the flexibility that you have so much money in the bank, you can't figure out how to spend it?
Yeah.
I mean, you have $21 billion in the bank. You're expecting another $4 billion in free cash flow in the fourth quarter. You're expecting another 12 to 20 billion in free cash flow next year. You're spending it as fast as you can. You're building factories and putting in new equipment as fast as you can. You can't figure out how to spend it any faster. You don't want to go buy another company.
Yeah.
You have no debt. So the banks out there will be thrilled to supply you with all the money you wanted if you needed money. That kind of flexibility, there's only a couple of companies in the world that have that. Microsoft, Apple, that are sitting on such cash piles that they don't have to really think about. It's not something you don't spend any sleepless nights wondering if you're going to make payroll.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and this was like one of the biggest thing against Tesla. If we go back 3 years,
yeah,
people thought they would go bankrupt, and
yeah.
and now they have so much cash they don't know what to do, and talking about buybacks and all kind of stuff.
So you go into a recession again.
Yeah.
All the talk right now about the recession. I think the recession lasts from now till May. I think we'll be starting to turn in May. Interesting, in the United States, new home sales up last month.
Oh, what?
Who expected that? Okay,
definitely not me.
That's a shock. Okay,
Jeez.
so the recession, yeah, it could be worse than anybody thinks, and I'm the biggest optimist in the world, but I think it'll be over by May, and we'll be off to the races again. But let's say maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the Fed just really, drives a stake in the heart, and we really have a bad recession. Who's going to weather the recession better?
Yeah.
The company that's got $1 bajillion in debt, and their sales are down, and their profits are zero or less than zero, and they're laying off people like crazy because they can't make payroll. Or the company that's got 21 billion in the bank and no debt. Who's going to weather? And their sales are going up, steadily up.
Yeah, and they're working on innovative technology that usually wins through a recession anyway. So
right.
Yeah.
So who is going to be the winner of that battle? The one that has the money, which gives them the flexibility to do what they need to do in a good market or in a poor market. Personally, I think they're nuts not to buy back $10 billion this morning worth of stock. I mean, I don't get it.
Big discount.
I don't get it. I mean, I'm thinking about selling one of my homes in order to spend more money on Tesla stock. I don't know. Looking under the pillows on the couch, see if there's any loose change.
Yeah. So cheap right now.
Crazy number.
Yeah.
So that's another huge, not only moat, but provides them with flexibility that no other car company has. Not even close.
Yeah. That is awesome. That's why it is the most important moat in this book. But if you want to learn about 20 other moats that Tesla has over the competition, go check this out, the Elon Musk mission, because there is a lot of great stuff in there. We even have some reviews from people who follow Tesla and have followed them for many years and still come and say, wow, I didn't know that. So even if you think you know all about Tesla, well, check out the book and see if you really do know everything about Tesla.
I can guarantee you, Lars, that even the ones that say, well, I knew most of that, baloney. I would love to have had them take a test before they read it and say, how many moats can you name, and what is a moat?
Yeah.
How many marketing levers can you name, and what is a marketing lever?
Yeah.
What is how much money can SpaceX potentially make on the deal they just made with T-Mobile? I'll bet you not many people knew what Brian was able to add to the book in terms of that, how amazing the T-Mobile deal is, and that it might make Starlink the biggest company in the world.
Yeah.
In addition to being the biggest company in the world because of internet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a crazy lot of information in this book, so please go check it out. Link in the description down below.
And the audio is available now.
And the other, yes, on Amazon, you can get it as an Kindle, paperback, hardback, and audiobook. Whatever you please, it is there and ready to go. So please check it out. And Randy, thank you so much for spending the time and talking about Tesla's biggest moat of them all, flexibility.
Nice to see you again.
You too. See you, Randy.